Hello there, I'm Jack, and tonight's topic is ego. And it's a big one because I feel like it's everywhere. So let me explain. I know it sounds weird because we like to create this division between this and that. You know, this is ego, that's not ego. And that's perfectly fine. You know, that's how a lot of us look at ego, especially in the Western society. So we tend to look at ego in a more negative light, and rather than a positive one. So anything that's negative, if I judge something in a negative way, let's say against another person, that's ego. That's my ego coming out. And so we give particular slices of life a label of ego. And so, like I said, you know, selfishness, judgment, negative judgment at least, and many others, you know, taking rather than giving. So we have a duality at play between all those, but we just tend to look at one side as being negative, something that we don't want. So, you know, with taking, there's the other side that's giving. And when you put the two together, you know, it's one, but that's where ego comes in. We split it up. So we split up that duality, and we say ego is over here, and that's taking. Giving is over here, no ego. You know, we don't even mess with that because that's what everyone should be doing. But the question is, if we're holding the door for everyone else, when do we get to walk through that door? At some point, we gotta be mean. We gotta be a dickhead. We may not have to go about it like a dickhead, but at some point, we're gonna have to take something. It's like gifts, you know. They say the only way to love is by giving something. Well, what happens to the people that take that gift? Do they not love anymore? Why do we gotta leave them out? You know, what happens to them? So it's just like food. That's completely fine to kill another being that had a life force because I feel empty. I feel less energetic unless I take that life force from another person, another being, a chicken, a cow, a fruit, you know, an apple. They have life force, they have souls, they have personalities, they have friends, they have families. They grew up. You know, they had a childhood, adulthood. So they're human beings, and they're beings, and I'm taking that life force. But in turn, you know, I take their life force, and I also give life force in, let's say, making a video, hopefully spreading an awareness. So there is a singular core that creates that cycle of life, that singularity that I feel like we need to really start seeing more and more. Instead of staying in this level of ego and non-ego, because to me it's all ego. It's just like empty space, you know. And so for space, for those astronomy nuts, there's no such thing as empty space. It's just distance. There's still energy in between planets and stars. And in my hands, thermal energy, you know, X-ray energy, gamma ray energy. So there's still something being exchanged. It only appears to be empty, and that's just based on our perception. You know, we just tend to define this as being empty, and that's not empty. So that's our ego coming out. You know, there's no escaping it. So it's the same thing with ego. As soon as we deny an ego, that's our ego coming out. It's the easiest way to spot it. Oh, that's not egoic. Right there. Red flag, waving right in front of our face. That's the ego. And so ego is simply preference. I want. As soon as I say I want something, that's my ego coming out. I want something to happen. I want to make this video. I want to eat something. I want to go give something. I want to make something for another person. I want. All that's ego. But that's what gets things done. So we can't look at ego, you know, in such a negative way as something to avoid, because there's no avoiding it, and we're just spinning round and round and round because there are people saying these things are egoic and those things aren't. But really, it's all happening at the same time. So that's how you spot ego. Look for the infinitive that's always happening. There's no escaping it. Look for the infinitive that's defining a finite aspect of life. So it's just like, for example, unconditional love. No conditions apply. There's no fluctuation up or down. And that's an infinitive, all-encompassing. But as soon as we say, you did something I like, we split it up. Because then the other side is doing something that I hate. Conditional love, conditional hate. You did something I like, I got happy. You did something I didn't like, I got sad. But I'm always going to love you, in one way or another. That's that singular core. So there's another one, now, living in the now. That's a new age one. And so people look at that and they'll say these things are living in the now, but those things aren't. So stay away from those things. And if you ever get close to those things, watch out, because it will take you out of the now. So like looking into the past and looking into the future, those things are not now, but when do we reflect on what we just did? Like what if we ran a red light and two cars slammed into each other? It's not happening now, so do I just forget about it? And when do I ever want to meet up with my family? Do I just say, screw it, I'll meet them when I meet them, because I'm living in the now, buddy. I'm winging this. So, no. I want to plan those things out. The question is, and that's where the infinitive comes in, the question is, when am I reflecting on my past and looking into my future? Now. So I'm never escaping now. I don't have to worry about that. When someone says I'm not living in the now, I'll just be like, well, when am I living? It's right now. If I'm reflecting in my past, I'm reflecting right now. If I'm looking into my future, I'm looking right now. So same thing with distractions. We say these things are distractions and those things aren't distractions. But my attention is somewhere. It just is over here rather than over there. And over there is where they want my attention, on those things. And so they say, oh, you're being distracted. And I'll say, yeah, you're right. I am being distracted. My attention is over here. Now what? And so then people don't really know what to do with that, because they try to make me feel bad that my attention's over here rather than they make me feel bad that my attention's over here rather than over there where they want it. And I know that that's their ego claiming out my ego. My ego is saying I want my attention over here. Their ego is saying my attention should be over there. So really, now what? Now what do we do? And if I go about my conflicts that way, conflict diffused. No more. Basically, because I see both sides, I'm like, yeah, you're right. I am being distracted by these things where my attention is right now. And I'm not as aware of those things. And it seems like you are. But guess what? You're not as aware about these things that my attention's on. So who's better? Who's more righteous? And really, we're equally righteous, because our attentions are equally on something else. They just not on the same thing. So like I said, find the infinitive. Find the infinitive and see what it's describing as a finite system and a dualistic system. If ego is in negativity and non-ego is in positivity, they're both absolutes. And they're trying to describe a finite aspect, a dualistic aspect. So if we find the infinitives, like connection, people say, I want to make more connections. Or I want to connect with people. And the first thing I ask them is, why aren't you already connected? Everything's already connected, but at a distance. We just don't look at it that way. So that's the infinitive. Everything's always connected, but at a distance. My hands are connected at a distance. My hands are still connected at a distance. It's just that distance is much smaller than that distance. Same thing with planets. I'm connected to planets, but at a distance. That distance may be too far for me and my willingness to see that connection, see that relationship. And that's all that is. So if I want to deepen that, make more of a connection, then I put my attention there, and I try to make more of a connection. But to make a connection, it's always there. All we're doing is just strengthening or weakening other connections. Relativity, Einstein was awesome for that. said more or less of something. You know, it's that wiggle, stretch. You can have big stretch, you can have little stretch. More of something, less of something. So that's really what we need to find. We need to find those infinitives, see the finite aspect they're trying to describe, and then once we see that, we can sink into both sides of that duality, of that ego, those egos between positive, negative, masculine, feminine, love, hate, you, me, individuality, and community. Here and there. So there's so many of them, white, black, you know, but they all need each other in order to exist. You know, that's the singular core. Every single one of them need each other. Detachment, attachment. You know, Buddhism's all about detachment. Christianity is all about attachment. Sorry if that offends people. But yeah, that's generally what they favor. But it's about both. You know, there doesn't have to be the fight. So yeah, there's so many fights going on. I just kind of wish we'd see the egos that are at play, and we don't. And once we do that and we see that singular core, we don't have to fight the same way. And that's what I hope for. I hope we don't have to fight anymore, because there doesn't need to be this bouncing back and forth. And once we really see that bouncing back and forth, our head's just going like this, and we just want to stabilize. And when we stabilize, we see our path much more clearly. And that's the important part. So when we're not bouncing between this and that, you know, ego and non-ego, we get to see that purpose, and we don't have to feel like is this the right or wrong thing? You know, what are other people gonna say about it? Yeah, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that, because we live in this dimension. It's split, it's dualistic, it's energetic, just like any other dimension. It's just a different slice of energy. So of course we feel a certain way, like I do something, I feel wrong, I feel bad. Some things I do, and then I feel good about them. I feel righteous. But in the grand scheme of it all, it's all my own feeling. And so yeah, if something feels good and I want to go with that, then I go with that. If something feels bad, then I don't go with that. Even though what feels good, someone may say it's egoic. And I'll say, but this is my direction. I need to see this aspect of life. I need to feel this aspect of life. And where we go from there is so much different. And how we go about our relationships is so much different. The people we meet, the conflicts that we get into, conflicts are handled much differently when we see those egos and really feel them in our hearts. Because we can then talk to them with our hearts. And that's really what it comes down to. So if we can talk to them with our hearts in those egoic forms, realizing there is no right or wrong, how we go about our differences really changes. So that's what I wanted to share about ego, and I hope this helps you in some way or another. Please leave comments or questions. Both are welcome, and it helps me help you, and then I help you. And so you can see the relationship, you know, there's the duality and the infinitive at play. So we can help each other and keep this cycle going. So yeah, please let me know if there's anything that resonated with you, anything that didn't click, or if I missed anything. You can subscribe. And yes, thank you, much appreciation. Thank you for doing what you do, because if you weren't doing it, the world would not look like it is.